Welcome. It is the last live stream of the SharePoint Hackathon, part of the SharePoint 25th anniversaries. We've gone through 5 of these because this is the 6th one, which is really, really cool. SharePoint Hackathon started actually on the SharePoint 25th anniversary, kicked off by Jeff Teper himself on the 2nd of March. And now we are already on, what day is it? It is 12th of March, but there's plenty of time for you to get involved in the hackathon, getting your submissions ready, designing solutions, deciding SharePoint embedded stuff and SharePoint framework stuff, and whatever is your preference on these things. Now, hackathon will run until 16th of March. That is actually midnight on the Pacific time frame, which is great. So you have extra time or still on Monday, or if you wish and you want, you can, of course, during a weekend work on some of the hackathon things as well. But to also remember, family and health and charging those batteries is important. So don't use the whole weekend only for hackathon submissions. But we do want more and more people to actually get involved as well. Now, the hackathon, like I said, started on 2nd of March, part of the 25th anniversaries. AKMS SharePoint Hackathon, AKMS SP at 25 Hackathon, both of them actually land on the GitHub location, where you'll find all of the different details, all of the submission categories, and everything what you need to actually get started. And if you have questions, just use the discussion forum there as well, and we'll following up on those questions as fast as possible. Now, today, the topic will be SharePoint Embedded, but let me actually get the co-host first in here. Co-host today will be David Warner, and here's Dave.
Woo! Thanks, Tessa. Super excited to be here on the 6th. I feel like we missed an opportunity for having a 6th or 7th. To see what I did there? 6, 7.
No,
okay, sorry, you're going to kill me. You're gonna
again.
I know. It's awesome, though. Super excited to be here.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I didn't do a quick intros for myself either, so I'm a principal product manager from Microsoft, working on the community side of the house and all of that. And let's jump on David's quick intro so we don't miss that as well.
Yes, so David Warner, work with Quisitive, do a lot in the community, the recognition program, sharing is caring, community calls with Vesa, and all that stuff. Super excited. MVP, MCT, love this hackathon. So I'm so excited to be on this final episode.
Absolutely. Now, let's deep dive in soon to the hackathon discussions, but what are you expecting from the hackathon, David? What have you followed up? I know that you're following up on things. You are closely involved on the hackathon setup. Any thoughts on this until now?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's the 2nd hackathon, right? Second consecutive hackathon, which is important. A lot of folks are excited, seeing a lot of teams, and I think a lot of people are still working on stuff because they feel like the bar has been raised. So I think that there's an awesomeness to that, but at the same time, don't overthink it, everybody. If you've got some creative ideas that come by way of a video and or some creative designs that you feel like could be the art of the possible, there's a lot of categories here. So don't feel like, well, I don't know, I'm not really a fan of curly braces or a developer, so is this really the place for me? Don't second guess it. There are so many different categories that you can contribute on and or submit a submission on. So really tons of time left. And for those that are in Europe and after the Pacific time zone, it's like you get extra time, right? Because it's midnight.
Yes, almost a full day.
Yes. Yeah, it's like you're in the future. So you get some great Scott.
Yes, that's how it works. But like David was saying, not all of the categories even require any developer skills. So there are categories which are for design and storytelling. And also one thing to always remember, like David was also saying, it's about the inspiration and art of possible and ideas. Even though you might not get your solution fully ready and fully functioning, tell a story, tell what we were trying to accomplish, and maybe show an out-of-the-box feature and say, I would have actually done this and this, but now it's a picture, but I ran out of time. Brilliant. That's still a great example of a submission because that's the idea, what we're looking into, and it's a video submission. You don't have to share any code or images or anything like that. So we're making it super easy for everybody to participate.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it could be interpretive dancing. It could be done singing.
Absolutely. That's. I think we have a category for the most inspired video.
That is true, right? And I love what you said, Vesa, because it's true. Like, it doesn't have to be fully attainable technically yet, because you could be providing inspiration, and guess what? That inspiration could become the next feature in SharePoint. How powerful and cool would that be? Like, I inspired this feature in SharePoint. Really, really amazing stuff.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. Sharing is caring, like we tend to say. Now,
Absolutely.
before we actually go to the actual presenters and the stars of today, where we have the SharePoint Embedded people coming in and they're going to show the latest and greatest on SharePoint Embedded, let's do a quick recap. What is the SharePoint Hackathon all about? And what are those categories? We kept on mentioning the different categories. So David, can you walk us through? Oh, before we go there, that's a fair point. That is a fair point. I've completely forgot about it. Dear me. So first of all, at AKMS SP at 25, we obviously have a recording of the 25th anniversary of SharePoint, which happened on the 2nd of March. So that digital event, which was broadcasted live as a live stream, is available as a recording at the AKMS SP at 25 or within our Microsoft Community Learning channel, including additional videos. So this event wasn't just about recapping what's in the past. It was actually primarily focusing on the future. And we did announce new features and capabilities on the AI with the inside of SharePoint, Copilot integration, all of that stuff. So you don't want to miss all of that. You don't want to miss that recording and those additional videos. So please check out that one. But then on that hackathon topic, let's actually go through the hackathon categories. So David, can you walk through what do you need to do to be able to submit in any of the categories?
Yeah, absolutely.
What are the categories?
What are the categories, right? So we know we're going to submit a video, and we know that it obviously is done via GitHub. So don't be scared by that, anybody. And if you have questions, reach out to Vesa or myself or any other members of the team, because there is a little bit of GitHubiness that can be frustrating. Don't let that be a barrier. We've got some sessions, in fact, Vesa had mentioned sharing is caring, that assists with that. So be on the lookout for that too. You got plenty of time left though. So first one is UX design. So this is really about, as he mentioned, the art of the possible. What are some ways, and does that mean that you have to fully have created it directly within SharePoint and say, yes, this is deployable tomorrow? No, be creative, because that could inspire the next feature that the team includes in the solution and the software, which would be amazing. Again, could you imagine going and putting on your resume, author of feature blah, blah, blah? That would be awesome. So that is the first one, UX design. Showcase the beautiful opportunities and designs that can be created within SharePoint. And when you look at what we've come from, how it used to be a little bit more like, we only had so many choices, and now it's so many choices. It used to be, can you make SharePoint not look like SharePoint? And that was true because it was limited. Now I hear people going, can you make it look more like SharePoint on these other platforms? Yes. So the pendulum has shifted. It's super awesome, really, really cool. And then we got the mobile experience. So this is about the home sites and stuff like that, right? How can you make it look when you're dealing within the mobile experience? Because it is a one platform opportunity, and not all of us are tied behind a desktop all day long. Sometimes we're traveling and we want to be able to get information and access to the data that we need. So what can that look like? We've also got knowledge agents, which we know has shifted a little bit here and there, but it is all about providing that control and accentuation and enhancement to your document libraries and your content, right? So there's still a lot of opportunity there. Agents with SharePoint, well, really, I mean, this is a broad spectrum, right? There are SharePoint agents that are specifically within SharePoint, but really, it's not just those individual agents that you create by way of the SharePoint interface. It could be any agent that's surfacing either SharePoint data, right? And who doesn't want to ground in SharePoint data, because it is the de facto place. Hey, guess what? When COVID started, everybody's like, oh my goodness, SharePoint's going to go away. Teams is the future. Nobody was like, realizing behind the scenes it's SharePoint. So it's like that Scooby-Doo episode.
COVID anymore. Come on, no, that's just kidding.
It's like the Scooby-Doo, right? Where it's like, who is that masked person? It's SharePoint,
yes.
right?
SharePoint still.
OneDrive, sure. SharePoint. Yeah, so all these things, right? So yeah, so SharePoint really is that home for all these possible opportunities with agents. And then of course, SharePoint Framework. I love SharePoint Framework. Started out in SharePoint Framework. And really it's one of the amazing ways that you can extend SharePoint in a variety of capacities, so many different ways, from extensions to web parts to library components and packaging data that can be used across all these components. A lot of opportunity there. And no licensing additional costs, right? That's the beauty of SharePoint Framework, is you get it all. And so you can deploy and create all that you want. A lot of open opportunity there. And then of course, SharePoint Embedded, where you have the opportunity to showcase really anything. If there's any limitations on any of the other opportunities that we've discussed, SharePoint Embedded provides you complete control, because it is still using the SharePoint data. It is providing you API access to that secure data, to the content that is there. It's just not providing you the interface. So you get to define what that interface looks like, but still be able to take advantage of all the amazing SharePoint goodness on where your documents are stored.
Compliance, Copilot,
Yeah,
surfacing,
exactly.
all of that goodness,
Yep.
for sure.
Yeah. So I really feel like there is no single place or rock that hasn't been unturned here for you to be creative. And again, don't feel like, well, it has to be something that I can deploy tomorrow. Get creative. Take something that is deployable tomorrow and then say, I would like to see it be used or created or enhanced in this way, and come up with some mock-ups or designs or descriptions. It doesn't have to be, a Picasso or some amazing deliverable. The idea, it could be the spark that lights the fire of innovation on the next wave.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. Now, really well, thank you for covering all of those. And again, repeating, you do not have to be a developer. And again, mobile experiences is the SharePoint home site, which is the new feature, which we announced actually last week to be now in preview as well. So the mobile experiences are actually in Microsoft Teams. When you're using the home site in a mobile, you are accessing directly the SharePoint experiences, which is awesome. It's a great new option available for everybody to benefit. Now, from a timing perspective, I think we need to start moving on to the actual topic of the day. But before we go there, the question would be, why would I actually submit on the SharePoint Hackathon? What do I get to submit as part of the hackathon? And we got you covered there as well. So everybody who's submitting will get a special badge from the Correctly, which is designed for SharePoint Hackathon. So that's for everybody who's submitting as part of the hackathon. We will also explicitly mention by name and reference points the top three in every single category. Again, 6 categories, and top 3 will be mentioned within a blog post and also in the video. Video will be the live stream where we will announce the awards within 25th of March. The actual winner award will be a Surface laptop for every single category. And if there's a team behind of the submission, one submission can have 4 people behind of that, so which is a team of 4 people. Every single team member will get a Surface laptop, which is really, really cool. And it is not the cheapest version. It is a proper Surface laptop, which will be then delivered for you. And then, of course, for anybody who's building anything and designing things as part of this hackathon, we do invite you to do demos within our community calls. We do have hundreds of people joining every single week, part of the community within our community call, where we showcase latest and greatest from Microsoft side and also from community side on what's actually happening. And that's happening every single week. So you don't want to miss out AKMS community calls to stay up to date on Copilot, SharePoint, Power Platform, so many other Copilot Studio. All of that stuff is getting actually showcased within those community calls as well.
Yeah, and one cool thing too that if you were not part of last year's, you will now know, with the badge, for those that win, you get an exclusive 1-of-1 badge for your category. How cool is that? You're going to get your own dedicated categorical award badge that only you and the team will have. That's awesome. Very, very cool.
Yep. Absolutely, absolutely. Now, then it's time to actually move into the content of today. Again, today we're going to focus on SharePoint Embedded, and let's bring Steve, who's going to do the presentation and the actual demos of today. Here, Steve Pusalik. That's the right way to say that, isn't it? Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Vesa. Again, I'm Steve Pusalik, Senior Product Manager on the SharePoint Embedded team. Excited to see what you can produce with your ideas that you have. Like Vesa said, if you're a pro code developer, great. If you're a low code developer, even better. We have all the components there in SharePoint Embedded to help you with your ideas and make that reality. So very excited to see what you can come up with. And we're going to walk you through some nuts and bolts to get your head in the right spot. Got a few demos that will inspire you as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Good to have you here, Steve, to showcase the latest and greatest. And I think at this moment of time, it's just better for me and David to kind of vaporize ourselves, and we'll be back for AMA and discussions in the end. So, Steve, take it away.
Thank you, sir. All righty. So what I want to walk through, again, some of the building blocks on how you can build your application on SharePoint Embedded with Copilot interaction, collaboration interaction, and that full UI that you are experiencing. Okay? So with that, a lot of things that we're going to focus on are the core features of SharePoint Embedded. Collaboration. I want to be able to open that document. I want to be able to mention people. I want to be able to share that externally. What does that look like? How do we go about doing that? We're going to dive deep into that. Naturally, AI is a foundation of any content that we're going to store in any repository. SharePoint Embedded is AI ready. You drop that document into SharePoint Embedded, we're going to put that into the index. It's semantically indexed. It's ready for Copilot goodness. We have some interfaces that will allow you to interact with that, reason over that naturally as you would expect it would. And of course, we can't forget compliance. All that M365 compliance that you've invested in for OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams, anything that holds content, SharePoint Embedded is right there. We fully support Entra ID. Any configuration that you have to make your environment secure, we're going to honor that, of course. Sensitivity labels, whatever you have published, you can apply to any SharePoint embedded content. And of course, the M365 threat protection, antivirus, all of that you would expect in the platform is there by default. All right. So now that we are focused on what are some of the core capabilities that we get in SharePoint Embedded, this is where we look at the 4 C's. Core storage. This is where you have the ability to add your documents at scale to your application. So we're going to get into the concept of what is a container, how many documents could go into a container, but that's really the architecture that you're used to from maybe a SharePoint environment, but now you want to, again, design that custom user interface, but not have to worry about what I call the hard stuff. So that's where the core storage is really going to be important. Collaboration, real-time collaboration, period. There's no plugins, no downloading, no uploading. Those old-fashioned tricks that you had to do in the past, all fully supported within the platform itself, easy to implement. We're going to show you how to do that. Compliance, again, that M365 compliance that you have created and want to administer across all your data, right there. And of course, Copilot. So this is where within your custom application, you have the ability to add that Copilot experience. The user interacts with it just as you would normally interact with an agent, but you're going to brand it according to what you want to see in your application. So let's get down to a little bit some of the core components that you're going to want to know about as you're creating applications on top of SharePoint Embedded. Currently, you know about SharePoint and OneDrive in your M365 environment. SharePoint Embedded is that additional environment where you're going to have that isolated storage. So this is where you're going to create that container type. You're going to have containers that will hold the documents. So that's literally where you're going to interact with the content in your application. And let's talk a little bit more about containers. So container, again, is that isolated storage where you have the ability to add permissions. You have full control over that from an API perspective. If you want to use PowerShell to administer that, you can. You're going to see those containers in the SharePoint Admin Center. There's limited functionality there with regards to how you configure it and so forth. But the content in that container is only accessible through your application and through those APIs that you're going to create. Okay. You build the application, we take care of the hard stuff. So that's where nobody wants to create an Entra environment for authentication. Nobody wants to create an e-discovery or an audit log or have the Purview integration that we have. That's like super hard stuff, right? Build your application the way you want to. You design the UX, you design the architecture, you design how people integrate with it. If you want to integrate it with Dynamics, great. If you want to integrate it with Salesforce, great. Content stores in SharePoint Embedded, you're surfacing that in what people use every day. So that's the beauty of it and where the creativity comes into play. All right, so with that, I'm going to switch to the demo mode, and I've got a couple applications that I do want to show that illustrate how creative you can get on top of the content that you have stored in SharePoint Embedded. So the first application I'm going to show is a legal application with regards to contracts or patents or subpoenas or any type of legal type of information that you may keep within your firm, within your legal department, and so forth. So I'll tell you, full disclosure, I vibe coded this whole thing. So are you a pro code developer? That's perfect. We have the APIs to support that. But if you want to quickly get going with a prototype, use the vibe coding tool of your choice. This is what it may look like. So you'll notice that on the left-hand side, I have things divided into cases, and I can create as many cases as I want to. As I'm creating those cases, in this instance, I want to use folders to contain the documents that are related to this case. You may be a more metadata-driven person. I love it. Within the containers, you can store that metadata associated to the documents. But as I click on that folder, you're going to see the documents that represent, the contents of that folder. So in this case, I'm going to simply select my PDF. If I go over to view that document, it's just going to do exactly that. I'm going to view this document. So this is a built-in viewer that we have that will support more than 300 different file types. In this case, I'm displaying a PDF. If I wanted to see the properties of this file, so I have a automated process that's extracting out maybe certain information that I want to use as metadata later on, great. Now I can add that as custom metadata to that document, search on it, use that within some of my rendering on the screen, whatever you want to, okay? So some flexibility there as well. But you'll notice on the top, I've got my full CRUD operations, create, read, update, and delete. So if I wanted to create a new Word document, great. I'm going to create that new Word document, give it the name that I want to. In the folder that I have selected, that's where my Word document's going to be. Uploading files or folders, no big deal. You got the landing zone here, drag and drop them in. They upload into that container or this case that I have selected. Okay? So where the real power comes in, a number of places, is I'm going to go into a folder with status reports. I'm going to select a Word document. So you'll notice that once I select that Word document, I have the ability to edit this online or the desktop experience. If you're using Excel and you're an accountant, the desktop experience is probably where you like to hang out. But in this case, if I open it in Word Online, this is Word Online. This is not a stripped down version of Word. This isn't a SharePoint Embedded specific version. This is Word as we love Word. If you have a Copilot license, you get Copilot functionality. If you have sensitivity labels configured, now you have the ability to either apply that sensitivity label automatically as you're adding the document. There's an API that will allow you to do that. Or as you're drafting the document, you know the content that goes in there, select the sensitivity label that is appropriate. Okay? If I want to share that externally, great, I can share that out through the application. It will honor the SharePoint environment security settings by default. We have the ability to override that for your application only. So this is huge. Most organizations have that locked down super tight, totally get it. But we need to collaborate with external counsel, some vendors, things like that. If we adhere to the existing SharePoint configuration, that's a no-go. But with SharePoint Embedded, now we're able to make that collaboration so much easier. Version control does what you think it does. If I have additional versions of the document, I'm going to see that. If I wanted to restore that full version history, if I want to @mention folks, of course, I'm going to add a new comment. I can @mention people. Everything that you would expect in Word is there, or Office. Okay? So that's the full collaboration experience that you have. I'm going to leave that and come back. But again, if you wanted to open that in the desktop experience, full support there as well. Now, let's say I want to share this document. I'm creating the status report. I've got a number of vendors that are incorporated in there. If I hit that sharing button, I've got a number of options here. I can share that with people in my org. So when I create that link, anybody who has access to this container will be able to see that. Or I can share it specifically with people that I want to. So now you'll notice that this is an external user. I'm going to determine what permissions they have, determine the message, if I want to send an email, yes or no, and then create that link. So once I create that link, now they're going to be able to access this file externally. So when they open the Word document, for example, they don't need a Word license or an Office license if they want to view that in the browser. So that's another huge advantage of SharePoint Embedded. Now, naturally, if they want to open that the desktop experience, they're going to need a desktop license. Okay? So again, full CRUD operations, because you have control of the user interface. If you don't want the delete button there, don't put the delete button there. I don't care. If you do put the delete button there, naturally it goes into the recycle bin as you would expect, and you have control of that as well. All right, so I'm going to back up a little bit to the root of this case, and I'm going to hit this case summary flyout on the right. So you'll notice a few things happening. It has the case overview. So this is using the retrieval API that allows you to summarize the case information based on the content that I see for this case. Okay, so super cool there. That gets a little long, obviously, but you also have the ability to determine what case personnel are there, some of the key dates that may be on this case. Again, everything that's using the retrieval API grounded on your SharePoint embedded content. So this is allowing you to, again, flexibility, ease of use for the user. So they're coming in, they don't have to read through, obviously legal documents can be quite lengthy, quite large, have a lot of different legal terminology there. Give me the facts on the right-hand side. Now, if we wanted to get into more of an agentic experience, this is where we're using the Foundry IQ grounded on SharePoint embedded content to summarize this case or have that interactive chat experience with your content. So if I go and summarize the key facts of the case, there we have it, right? If I want to know what jurisdiction this is in, yes, I can't spell, which is good, but it knows that, hey, this is in Miami, who's the judge, and so forth. So again, I am interacting with the content on the case itself, very contextual to this case only, right? Because I could be managing a multitude of cases, but I only want to manage this one, or I can broaden that context to anything that I have permission to. So you can see the power on that. Again, all of the content that we put into our SharePoint embedded containers, representing cases in this example, that gets indexed into the semantic index and allows us to do this chat experience in app. So this is themed the way I want to. You'll notice that there's no Copilot reference here anywhere. That's okay. I'm good with that because this is what I want that experience to be for my users. All right. So that is an example of a pro code or a vibe coded solution that you may want to use within your hackathon project, which is fantastic. If you're a low-code developer, we have a set of Power Automate connectors that allow you to interact with that SharePoint embedded content. So I have a Power App that was created, and you'll notice that as I go into various containers, files, I have things that I can focus on with regards to that particular functionality. So if I want to list all the containers that are in my application, there's an endpoint or a Power Automate activity. Get me all of those endpoints in the container so that I can display that and show that within the screen. So this is nothing more than a JSON response. I'm taking that, I'm putting it into a collection, binding that collection to a data grid in this case, and life is good. Okay. If I wanted to create a new container, again, the parameters that are going into this container creation screen are nothing more than the parameters that I'm going to be using when I call that Power Automate activity. So as you're designing your screens, make sure that you understand what that API looks like, what that connector looks like, and then design the screen accordingly. If I go into files, you'll notice that now I'm projecting through what that container is. I have the ability to switch containers depending on what permissions I have. But again, I'm walking the file tree within my application. If I want to see invoices, I'm going to see invoices. And if I wanted to view that document, I can click on that. It'll go into the viewer. But if I wanted to, again, go back to my status reports and select a particular status report, now you can see I've got the file details on the right. But if I wanted to see the version history, I could see the version history of that as well, making that API call, coming back and seeing how many versions that I have in my pop-up screen. But if I wanted to view that document, again, it is executing that in the Office experience. I'm in Office, I'm doing Office stuff, but I'm launching that from my Power App that I can use accordingly. Okay. So again, full CRUD operations that are supported within the Power Platform, within the connectors that we have that are in Power Automate. Get creative, get really comfortable with those, super easy to use. If you want to use those within Copilot Studio, great. Those connectors are there for tools that you can use, again, to automate everything within that environment. So as I wrap up with a couple of the demos here, we have seen where you can use that pro code environment or use your favorite vibe code tool, create that experience that you want to. If you do need to store documents, SharePoint Embedded is absolutely the way to go. You don't have to worry about the storage mechanism, the data layer, all of those versions, permissions. You control that through your application. Again, we take care of the hard part of making sure that you can scale to millions of documents and millions of containers holding those documents. If you're a low-code developer, love it. I'm a low-code developer myself. Use those connectors with the Power Platform and visualize what you want to do. Again, create that user experience according to your business requirements, whatever your solution is. Super easy to do. If you can use the SharePoint connectors, you are absolutely going to be at home with the SharePoint Embedded connectors and the Power Platform as well. So that is a quick recap of some of the components that you need to get started with the SharePoint Embedded platform. Some examples here that will inspire you to get going. From a creation perspective, here's a bit of an overview of what that creation looks like. So the easiest way to get started, we'll get to that here in a second, is with the Visual Studio Code plugin. But what that does is in Azure, it will create that app registration. This is where the graph permissions are going to be held so that you have permission to get that token that you need to make those graph calls. And then use that within your application. As soon as you have that token, now you can use that to make your API calls. You can use that for the container management. So as you're creating new cases or creating new containers to hold those documents, that is all the permissions you're going to need. Again, underlying it with all the organizational policies that you have. If you've got MFA configured, if you've got conditional access configured, I love it. It's going to honor that no problem as users are entering the application. And the governance portion of it, huge. Any CISO that you talk to is going to readily quiz you on how is that data secure? How can I use that within the existing M365 environment that we have? It's already there. No problem there. You bring the business logic. Business logic is core to everything. The user experience is core to everything. We make it easy to store and scale. You're going to have the ability to customize that as you need to. Okay. Again, getting started, super easy. If you go to aka.ms/SPE adoption, that's where we have a quick tutorial on what SharePoint Embedded is, how to get started with it. The easiest way to get started, get the Visual Studio Code plugin. That allows you to create a trial container type, good for 30 days, get you through the hackathon so that you can create that great experience, that super cool app, and then use that to graduate into what we call the paid container type. We do have a 2-minute video out there that gives you further inspiration on what you can create, full graph API documentation. So all of the CRUD operations that I walked through within my sample app, fully documented. Little pro tip here, take that URL, put it into your vibe coding tool, and it will just produce it straight away. So that is super fun to do. All the public documentation is there as well. If you do want to create that paid container type, you've got a great idea that you want to get out into the marketplace, get it within your enterprise. SPE setup is the way to go. So there's a quick PowerShell script there, get you set up and gets everything you needed to get rolling. Okay. Can't wait to see what you're producing with the SharePoint Embedded, and hopefully this provides a little bit of inspiration so that you can get going and create some cool stuff.
Absolutely. Great work on Steve there, covering the basics and getting started and everything else. It is really exciting and a relatively new platform as well. When was SharePoint Embedded actually going to GA? Just for anybody who's like
coming up on our 2nd birthday. So we went live with Build a couple years ago, and the platform has scaled to lots of customers, millions of documents that are
Absolutely.
stored in the platform every day. So yeah, super excited to see the growth.
And there's a lot of SaaS providers who are actually building their experiences on top of this platform, because and the question might be like, okay, why would they do that? Well, because they have the SaaS platform, they have the UX already, but then you want to have that security and compliance based on customers' data, so the customer data remains in customer tenant, it does not go somewhere else, which is a really the core benefit of SharePoint Embedded.
Huge advantage there, right? So yeah, a lot of the SaaS providers, the ISVs that we're working with, they love that collaboration aspect. They're like, wait a minute, you mean I don't have to download this document and then edit it and re-upload it? I can do it right in the browser. This is fantastic.
Yeah, it helps a lot. It's a lot of services, a lot of capabilities for ISVs, and for anybody who's building these capabilities. Now, we do have a few questions coming up on the live streams on multiple different locations, which is great. So let's actually start going through them, and then we can talk about. Well, actually, before we go, sorry, I'm guiding through our producer. Anything what you want to talk about on the future roadmap or things what is under the upcoming? Are we going to have any new announcements on build or something in the pipeline?
Yeah, so a couple of things that we have in the hopper, if you will. Archiving SharePoint embedded containers, private preview now. We're hoping to go public preview here in the early summer timeframe. So if you want to have a lot of content that you're using or you want to retain for maybe retention purposes or legal purposes, then yeah, put it in those SharePoint embedded containers, have that UI around it, but put it in the archive storage so that it's easily retrievable. So those are things that we're actively working on now. The onboarding experience, more to come on that, but we're working on some super easy ways to onboard your applications into your environment. I'm like totally excited about that one. And of course, the Copilot story. So now that we're integrated in with some of the Foundry components, that's like early private preview, Copilot Studio. Those are some of the things that we're super actively working on to make sure that that whole Copilot story is just synonymous with any application you're developing or any content that you're storing in the M365 environment.
Absolutely. It is SharePoint Embedded. It's part of the M365. Copilot is in there. It's awesome. It's win-win for everybody. So it's really cool. Good. Now we got David here as well, and let's actually walk through a few questions. Sorry for our producer. I initiated the questions before, but Steve Corey was asking, when it says say a retrieval API, are you talking about the Copilot retrieval API and nothing else? So just to avoid any confusion there.
Yep, exactly. So the Copilot Retrieval API, right now, it's focused on SharePoint content, but there is work that's being done to support SharePoint embedded content as well. So I've got a link to an article that I'll post in the chat window so that you can have more information on that and start to take advantage of it with regards to how do I ground it on my SharePoint embedded content, and then what is the syntax, if you will, for the graph call so that you can get that out.
Absolutely. That's good. Copilot retrieval APIs and Copilot APIs, they're actually really cool. We showed some cool stuff yesterday as well on the SPFX session. Bit of a different context, but again, it's so powerful to get access on that LLM intelligence with the data and information and document data. It is really cool. Awesome stuff. Now let's do another question from Mike. David, do you want to take this?
Yeah. So can I also use embedded to create custom lists is the curiosity there?
Yeah. So SharePoint Embedded only supports documents. We don't support lists. It's something that we've heard a lot of feedback on, something we're thinking through. But my being an old SharePoint guy, being an old developer, how many of us?
You're not that old, Steve. But you've been around for a while. So, okay.
So the 25th birthday, I may or may not have been around for the first one. Right. So, yeah. But when I think of custom lists, I think of creating that relational database in SharePoint using some lists and some lookup columns, right? And that is great, but it kind of gets us into trouble. So if we want to do, typical, data, relational, referential integrity type of activities, lists are not our friend, right? So they're great for storing, settings and, doing list functionality. But where we see a lot of customers go is Dataverse or another data store. So you have that full relational support. and then store the documents in SharePoint Embedded.
Yep. Makes sense. So no for now for Mike. So at least for now. You never, never say never, because you never say never because you never know what's going to happen. So,
keep the
that's
feedback
just Mike.
coming. You bet.
Yes, absolutely. And I think we had one more question. So is there a way still use whitelisting of external domains in SharePoint Embedded? And can that be done by client if client equals container? So kind of adding a filtering and intelligence there.
Yeah, so a little bit of finagling, if you will, with regards to the container part of it. Some heavy emphasis on container, meaning that, hey, I have a customer X coming in, they have access to this container, customer Y on that container. Yeah, so there's a bit of trickery, if you will, that you can use in the application to direct them accordingly. The one thing that I will caution you on is when you're opening documents and you're doing the app mentioning, if it's in the same tenant, you may have app mentioning somebody from a different customer, even though they're in the same tenant. So that's something to really, really be aware of as you're using a container per client as they're coming in. So limit that functionality, turn that off so that you're not contaminating or exposing any client information.
Makes sense. Now, before we go to get any additional questions, I wanted to actually ask, because on the list capability and discussions, we talked about the kind of the limits, and of course, SharePoint lists are not a relational database, just to call that out for anybody who's watching. And yes, you can quote me on that one, but you don't want to build relational database in SharePoint list. But what about then the capacity and scale and storage limitations within SharePoint Embedded? Are there any? Because that's a logical question, which definitely comes up with any ISVs. So is there a cap on that side?
Yeah, so think of it this way, is when you create your application, you're creating containers that go into holding your documents, right? So you can create millions of containers. We've got some customers that are over 10 million containers, right? Each container is literally one site collection with one document library. Each container holds 25 terabytes. So if we're starting to have millions of containers and millions of documents in the containers themselves, I'd like to call that unlimited, but somebody's going to call me on that one day, which is great, but that absolutely will scale to what you need.
Yes, it's petabytes and petabytes and petabytes of data.
So. Yeah, and Steve, I think when you start saying like 10 million, you got to do like the Pinky Dr. Evil laugh, right? 10 million.
Totally.
No, billion. Yeah, so that's actually good to know, because again, that's the whole point of SharePoint Embedded as well. It is technically infinite at scale, so there's no concerns on that. But again, it is still saved inside of the particular customer's tenant. Or you can, and again, let's be specific. You as an ISV, you'll have a centralized.com site, and then you'll have containers in customer-specific tenants. Because the customer comes with their identity, and then that identity gives you the access on a tenant, and of course, customer grants you the permissions, so there's no concerns from a security perspective. How does the permission model actually work? Can you talk a bit about that one? So, who's going to get access on the containers when those are created?
Yep, you got it. So, kind of back up just one step to say, put your app in the marketplace and find it in the marketplace, install it on your tenant once you have that consent, and you start creating containers, you start using the app according to what you intended to there. Yeah. But from a permissions perspective, again, everything is grounded on Entra. So if you have users that are part of the organization in Entra, they're member users, great. If you have guest users, great. Everything is controlled there. But your application really controls what you have access to and what containers you have access to. So back to the client scenario or use case is, hey, I'm managing, I'm an accountant and I've got, 1,000 clients that I manage, and Besa, it's time for you to get me your taxes, and David, it's time for you to get me my taxes. I'm going to create a container for each one of you, and you're going to get access to your respective containers so that now we can collaborate on those documents. And if I need to give you an Excel spreadsheet to fill out, great. I'm not emailing anything to you. I'm sending it to you with a secure link. So basically you have access to your document. David, you're out of luck because obviously I didn't share it with you, right?
Yep.
So from a permission perspective, control it. Again, the application is key to this, right? If you want to give access to Vasa's tax information, well, that's your business, right? I don't care.
I just want them to pay my taxes. Is that okay?
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I'll take care of it. So it's
Woo!
okay.
Yep. So,
What you wouldn't do for other people in the communities.
that's right. Yep. So, yeah, that business logic is your business logic. You have the platform to support everything you want to do with it. So.
That's fair. That is good. Again, the application, the business logic for permission management is within the application. So whoever writes that decides who get access and where. So really, really cool. Of course, it's a bit of a different model than a typical SharePoint, but it gives some more flexibility for the application. And that's the whole idea. And then you did mention one more thing, because you mentioned something like every single container is a site collection. There's a site collection and document library. But I cannot access those document libraries and site collections as in the library views or anything, right? That's not the option.
Yeah. So if you go to the SharePoint Admin Center and you're obviously a SharePoint admin, you're going to see the URL to the site or the container that's there. If you take that URL and you're going to think, well, I'm going to sneak in. I know SharePoint. I'm going to go in the back end and I'm going to paste that URL maybe with underscore layouts and things like that, right? Because you're accessing it directly through the URL, 404, right? It's or 403, access denied. Okay.
Yep.
So even if you go into the Word document and see where the location is, again, trying to be sneaky, I'm going to go in the back door, not so much. So if you're not calling that through the Graph API, then we seal any access to the content.
Yes.
So even if you're a SharePoint admin and you go in and grant yourself owner permissions, you still need to know the Graph API to get your content, right? So so that's the secure nature.
Get permissions truly through the Entra ID or Entra, however we pronounce it. Entra. It's a Finnish way of saying this as an Entra. So Finglish, But it's all secured by Entra ID permissions, so that not other people can access other people's containers and all of that. So there's no problems over there on that side. Then I do know that we have a great question actually in YouTube related on something which is super kind of a consistent with SharePoint. This definitely comes up for you, Steve, as well. What about content types? Sure.
Yeah.
What about content types in SharePoint Embedded?
Yeah, so SharePoint Embedded does not support content types currently. But we do support custom columns, metadata. So if you wanted to go to that container, add custom columns to it, love it, create all the custom columns that you want. We've been, kind of thinking through the pros and cons of adding content types and also manage metadata from the content type hub, things like that, but nothing to announce, reveal around that currently. So, yeah.
Conceptually, as a old school SharePoint person, when I'm thinking this through, SharePoint Embedded is more like the ISV side to the customer environment. So having a connection from content type hub to those doesn't really kind of make sense.
Yeah.
And again, if you can do metadata already, and the metadata is understood by the Copilot, by the way, nowadays, which is great. And that means that you're able to filter, you're able to store that metadata. So do we need to have explicitly content types?
Yeah.
Debatable. So
the argument that
there
we
is a
hear is
dimension.
to say, hey, I've got a customer name field and I've got 10,000 containers. Well, guess what? They're creating it 10,000 times, and then you may have to modify it. Maybe just have the concept of a content type within SharePoint Embedded realm. Yeah, but nothing out there currently. Maybe.
Yeah. Theoretically, maybe in future, based on demand. So thanks, Mike, for calling that one out. And obviously, we're always interested on scenarios and things on why people are asking these options.
Totally.
Cool.
Totally open for feedback.
I think we have a few more. Let's do a few more questions. I'm being conscious about the time, and then we'll start wrapping up because we don't want to go late and too long within this live stream. People might have something else already agreed. But now, typical question on the SharePoint Embedded side as well, as expected. When should organization consider SharePoint Embedded instead of building on top of SharePoint Online or OneDrive? So what are the kind of the considerations, decision points?
Yep. So some of the decision points that I always look for is security, right? To say, I'm collaborating on patents and I create a SharePoint site and I put those into my SharePoint site And now I'm not quite sure how to manage permissions. And guess what? People have access to the patent information that I really don't want to have access to. So that control, again, that you want to enforce through your application so that people, I say, don't come in the back door, is always something that we are very aware of. In that same scenario, though, is I want to collaborate externally with people. So if I put it into a SharePoint site, that means that I have to now open up my sharing permissions on SharePoint, probably a little broader than I want to. And that really scares SharePoint admins. They're like, it's a hard stop. No, find something else. And people find something else, right? Which is not good, because then obviously that data sprawl issue kind of comes into play as well. So with SharePoint Embedded, again, with the application you're creating, open up the sharing permissions just to that application. Nothing else gets affected in the tenant. Collaborate as usual, and life is good. So, So, but and also, you don't want to have the I don't want to say the overhead of SharePoint site, but really the overhead of another SharePoint site. You want to create that custom application only to support those documents. You don't want the UI that SharePoint provides. You want to build that yourself. It's got to be totally secure, totally isolated, doesn't show up in an M365 search, doesn't show up in the native Copilot results unless you intend it to. So again, a lot more granular control there with SharePoint Embedded than you typically would on a SharePoint Online site. So,
and it feels like a little broader spectrum for choose your own adventure, right? Like you said, when you work within kind of SharePoint Online, you have a lot of control and a lot of freedom, but when it's headless, like it is with Embedded, you literally have almost zero restrictions. You can choose if you wanted to, write it in any language to access it and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, exactly. And you control that experience. Like I said before, if you don't want the delete button up there, don't put a delete button there, right? So don't tantalize people with.
Now you can actually delete or hide the delete buttons also in document libraries and SharePoint. Just to call that out. But again, so. But definitely, so absolutely understand that, and you can imagine a world where your inside enterprise documents are managed in the SharePoint Online, but then when you start sharing documents, for example, with external people, you actually take them from the SharePoint Online, put it in the SharePoint Embedded. You have a separate application. How do you actually do that? So again, there's multiple scenarios, atypical scenarios and thinking points how people would be able to use these models. So it's really, really cool.
Totally. Yeah.
Good. I think we have a few more questions coming up. Let's do one or two more and then wrap up for today. I think this is a recapping question. How does SharePoint Embedded inherit Microsoft 365 security and compliance capabilities? So you covered them a bit briefly, but it's always good to repeat on what does that mean in practice?
Yeah. So from an M365, so security and compliance, i.e. Purview, anything that you have configured in Purview, SharePoint Embedded is a first-class citizen in Purview. So sensitivity labels, DLP, e-discovery, audit logging, sensitive information types, anything that trainable classifiers, anything that you can think of where you're using content needs to be secured or needs to be controlled, SharePoint Embedded is right there. So all of the security and compliance investments that you've made already, SharePoint Embedded is fully compliant with those. So that's the easy, straight, no frills answer. It's there. It works.
Yep. That's a great answer. Definitely. It's there and it works. Done. Good. Let's do one more from YouTube side. Does it have an additional cost associated with SharePoint Embedded, or is it part of the O365? So what is the cost model on SharePoint Embedded? Just to be clear on that.
Yeah. So the cost model is, I like to say we complicate licensing pretty well, but with SharePoint Embedded is pretty simple. Right? It is not part of your SharePoint allocation, which is great. So if you're starting to pay that premium storage in SharePoint, then SharePoint Embedded might be an option. There's three things that we bill for: API calls, storage, and egress. Egress meaning if you're taking it out of SharePoint Embedded. So it's really a pay-as-you-go option. So when you're creating that application, designate the subscription that is going to be used to capture those meters, and then pay for what you use. It's really that simple.
So let's be specific. If you have a SharePoint Online licenses, you're using SharePoint Online, there is a pay-as-you-go add-on on top of that when you're using SharePoint Embedded. And again, how much? Well, it depends on how much traffic there is and how much storage there is within the SharePoint Embedded.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's like a fraction of a cent, like 0.005 cents per API call and 0.0600667 for per gigabyte of storage. So
if you noticed how Steve was looking on the site, he has the cost structure on the table, on the wall. So this question comes up all the time, so I have it on here.
Yeah.
So,
and I love Vesa, your Vesa's inner consultant is coming out when he said it depends, right? Normally that's a technological answer. Licensing is now, we've gone full circle.
Yes, that is true. That is true. Cool. I guess it is starting to be time to start closing up for today and summarize things. Before we do that, Steve, I'm putting you on a spot. Now, as part of the hackathon, for anybody who's looking into, I want to build something with low code, no code, or low code, is it code or not, but Power Platform or Pro Code on SharePoint Embedded, what would you like to see within the video? What kind of submissions you would like to see people to do?
You know, so I'm looking for some unique submissions that are around real business problems, right? So if we're creating an app that solves you know, a manufacturing issue or something that solves a professional services issue, those are fantastic, right? So I'm a big proponent on let's have a real problem, let's solve a real problem. And a lot of times there's a document involved there. So how are we storing those documents? How are people interacting with them? What is the user interface? Again, the user interface on how easy it is for people to adopt it is really, really crucial. You know, you'll notice that I like my flyout menus and I like everything kind of organized a specific way. I don't like the hide buttons because, you know, then they appear and they're like, well, the people are pointing at the screen to say it was there, but it's not there. The more creative you can get with some of the components that we have around really what your business case is, those are the things that I'm really super interested in.
Cool. I'm going to put you on spot, David. Anything what you would like to see? You're not a SharePoint Embedded feature crew member, but you're a co-host, so I'm going to put you on a spot.
That is true. That's okay. That's okay. So, I mean, I tend to look at things a little differently, right? I absolutely love the customization of the UX UI, and that's really where it comes into me. But also, I kind of look at some niche things, right? Where's my passion, or where's something that would make me go, yeah, okay, I now am going to use SharePoint to store information here because I can now do this. So a couple things I thought was something like maybe a learning platform, right? You could set up a learning platform that could be set up with course documents and assignments and tracking documents that may be secure. It could be student uploads. It could be corporate training. It could be certifications. It could be onboarding. It can be used for those that are coming in that maybe need to provide some learning. And a lot of that gets outsourced right now, but if it could be brought in-house without having any of the restrictions that maybe we've talked about, or even having to gain the knowledge. So I think that's a cool opportunity. I'm big on training right now. I'm big on knowledge and educating and stuff like that. So I feel like that's a fun way. And again, you don't even have to necessarily have the A to Z story, but sometimes you get the A to B, and then that sparks an idea for someone else, and then someone else, and then someone else, right? One head is better than, you know, two heads are better than one, three are better than two, kind of stuff like that. So I think that would be a cool use case. And then also, as a consultant, one of the things that I think gets lost is what people have done on projects. And a lot of that is sensitive information, right? So now you start talking about taking AI combined with headless access to SharePoint data. Is there some sort of meet in the middle merge of, okay, now your resume has been improved or curated as a consultant of that organization by way of going in and looking at sensitive data, maybe cleaning it up and putting it into a way that you can kind of build. Because I get asked all the time, hey, can you go fill in this profile for this client? Tell them what you've done recently. And I'm like, I did my job, right? But it'd be nice to have it put together for me. So some ideas like that would be cool.
Absolutely. That's really, really cool. I also, by the way, I need to, well, we need to start closing up, but I will say I'm also a big fan of a custom UX and experiences and things, how people are using things. Now, coming back on David, what you were saying, I was just typing with Claude and having a chat with Claude, and so Claude is doing something on the site now. So but for just the recapping also for Hackathon, and like Steve was saying, even for mockups and storytelling and testing things, which SharePoint Embedded, Claude and coding agents, they're brilliant for actually making those things happen. Because again, then you get that idea on, okay, it's visualized and it's kind of works already. Excellent. Let's actually get an understanding of how things could actually work, even though you wouldn't actually write the whole thing with Claude or somebody else or some other coding tooling. Cool. You did notice I said or with somebody else. So like the Claude would be a person.
You mean, and he's
anyway.
not?
Wait.
What? Anyway, we need to start closing up. But thank you, Steve. Thank you, Steve, for joining. We will quickly recap the hackathon rules and the timings, and together with David, and then we'll close up with a video from Jeff. But quickly, David, do you want to go through the step of submitting?
Yeah, so I mean, really, you're going to go through GitHub, and we are setting up more support sessions. So it's not as hard as a full software-based request or submission or pull request, as they're called. It's really about creating a video and then filling out a form. And so if you need help, don't hesitate to reach out. But it is pretty simple. It's much like others, and you provide that information. You've got until Monday at midnight Pacific time, so still plenty of time. If you think about anything, don't overcomplicate it, right? Doesn't need to be. It could be you sitting in front of a camera, maybe even doing sketches, providing a little bit of idea, explaining things. There's lots of opportunities there.
Yep, absolutely. And the video itself should be 1 minute to 8 minutes. Why 8 minutes? It's not hard to limit. It's mainly because we don't want to have 35 minutes of a videos which we need to walk through because there has to be a cap. We are looking into getting a lot of these videos, and we need to rate them and make decisions on the awards. And again, submission by end of the day in Pacific time, the 16th of March, which gives us actually, that is 10 a.m. My time on Tuesday morning, so that gives me more time on actually doing things. Anyway, because I'm not based in Redmond. Now, on the upcoming live streams, and this is the final live streams, what we've been going through. As we started on the Tuesday, the day after the 2nd of March, 25th anniversary, and then we've been going through the live streams, 6 of them. Now, the next one will be in Wednesday, 25th. We will be live streaming that live from MVP Summit, which is an NDA conference, but we'll probably have some MVPs dropping by to that discussion. And the key objective of that one is that we are announcing who are the top 3 in every single 6 categories and who are the winning persons winning these things. More details on the URLs and everything else, go to AKMS-SP@25 Hackathon, and you will find the right live stream to put it in your list to follow up later. And I guess that's pretty much it. Again, the Hackathon awards is the key point, 25th of March. I can't speak anymore. 25th of March at 9 a.m. Pacific time. That's when we're going to do a live stream, and that will be recorded as well. This live stream will be available as a recording immediately when we close up as well. So you can easily go back in time and have a look on what was Steve actually showing. But I guess that's it for this time. David, thank you for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Co-host.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And I was going to say, for anybody that's watching and thinking, I never win those things, you never can win if you don't try. So just submit.
Absolutely.
You're still gonna be able to collaborate. You're still gonna get recognized. Don't second guess it. If you're passionate about something, submit.
Absolutely, absolutely. Design, mobile view, knowledge agents, or the document library modifications. Those are really, really cool stuff. 4th category is SharePoint Framework is there, agents, Copilot Studio, grounded on SharePoint, or SharePoint Embedded. So 6 different categories. Have a look on the details on the thing. And then we wanted to always call out the next time in person. We're hopefully seeing everybody who's watching this at Orlando on 21st to 23rd of April. We will have the Microsoft 365 Community Conference. A lot of people from Microsoft coming, a lot of people from MVP side of the house is coming as well to speak in Orlando. It's going to be definitely warmer than in Helsinki at this moment of the year. So it's really, really cool. Looking forward on that. But hopefully we'll see you everybody there. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, David. And let's get Jeff here to close up for today. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, everyone. I am so excited to join you at the upcoming Microsoft 365 Community Conference in Orlando, Florida, from April 21st to 23rd. This event is all about the future of work and how Microsoft is redefining what's possible and how you can bring that innovation into the daily flow for everybody in your organization. During the event, I will share how AI-powered experiences across Copilot and Teams, and of course SharePoint, is reshaping how people communicate, create, and work together. We'll highlight what's new, what's different, and why thoughtful design continues to matter. You'll see the latest advances in AI and agents, gain insights into where collaboration is headed, and learn why Microsoft is the company to continue to bet on when it comes to building what's next. You'll get hands-on experience with powerful new AI capabilities designed for every role and every function, walking away with real skills you can use immediately. Most importantly, though, you'll be part of a global community, connecting with experts and practitioners who share your passion for learning and innovating and leading through change. So I hope you'll register today and invite others in your network to join us. I can't wait to see you there.